I always do that. I start every video with a still shot of my windshield. Not the most appealing way to start a video. And so this is a really, really important topic. And I always want to remind myself of it because I'm a pretty intense person. I get, I don't want to say emotional, but I get worked up and when things aren't going well, and I have a tendency to allow at times, or I used to, not as much as I'd like to think I'm better at it now, but when things aren't going well, if there's a problem, if you're in a heated exchange or negotiations, or you're trying to get someone to see things your way, it's really, really important that you don't allow the things that people say to make you feel a certain way and then take action immediately on those feelings, because so many times we can misinterpret what someone's trying to say. Like, they'll say something, we interpret it one way, we feel a certain way about it, and then we go off into this completely different, place where we overreact, we make assumptions, we twist things to mean 1,000 different things that we're not even sure that person meant when they said what they said. And the only way I know to be better at that is I do everything I possibly can not to have an emotional reaction to something that is said to me. And just remember that it's only words, and not everybody that we talk to is an expert communicator. There's going to be someone in the line at the grocery store, or someone in traffic that cuts you off, or a salesperson, or a coworker, or whatever. Maybe, someone we're doing a transaction with, a deal that says something, and we completely misinterpret the meaning of it, and then we shut down. We get defensive, our ego gets in the way, and then it becomes not about the actual issue or the problem, and it becomes about this tug of war between us and the other person. So just do your level best to take 10 seconds, 5 seconds when you're having a conversation with someone and let it sink in. Think about really what that person is trying to say, and try and navigate through the conversation to come out with a reasonable solution for everybody that's involved. Don't get caught up in winning the conversation. Don't get caught up in wanting to be right. Like, at the end of the day, whether it's that person's idea, your idea, a compromise somewhere in between, the most important thing when there's an issue or a challenge is to come up with a reasonable solution. And even if that solution ends up being your idea, but you went through the process of hearing this other person out, you're much more likely to get buy-in from them to help you work through the problem. It's going to be two of you working through the problem together, rather than you working through the problem and them sitting back waiting for you to fail. So I would only tell you that when you have some heated negotiations, or there's tensions that are running high, and let's face it, everybody wants to do what's right in most cases. Like, we are generally good people. Human beings, regardless of what most people advertise or you see on the news, are good people. We want to do the right thing. We want to be fair. We want to be responsible. We want to be a good listener. We want to do the right thing, right? And we're not always going to be out for our own personal gain. I think, most people that I know want to be fair. But what gets in the way most times is we get too emotional. Our egos get in the way, and we get too concerned about what they said and how it made us feel, that's something we control. Now, certainly there's exaggerations or extreme circumstances where someone says something specifically to hurt your feelings, or specifically to belittle you or to criticize you. But in most circumstances, they're just trying to communicate a message to you. And if you're too emotional about that conversation, it's going to be hard for you to really understand what they're trying to say. So when you're having some conversation and you feel that it's escalating, make sure you put your ego aside. Don't care about winning. Care more about doing what's right. And don't get emotional. Don't let words or don't let what someone said get you emotional and feeling a certain way, because it's really hard to reverse our emotions once they get started, right? Like once someone's sad, it's super hard to make them happy. But if we're going into it with an open mindset to where we're going to be non-emotional about the conversation, we want to be very diplomatic about how we work through the conversation or the problem, and we're more focused on the result and coming out with a fair and equal solution than we are about being right. My experience is, at least for me, because I have a big ego, sometimes I would get caught up in just wanting to win the conversation. I would be more concerned about being right than I was about actually doing the right thing. And consciously, for me, it didn't just happen. I have to really, really, really think about it. So do yourself a favor. Approach those situations. Try and check your emotions at the door. I know it's hard. As people, we respond emotionally times to things people say because we feel offended, we feel disrespected, we feel a certain way about what was said, but only we can control that. So do your best to check your emotions and allow the conversation to evolve, and then make decisions based on facts, not assumptions. The second part is that was a big change for me. And I'm not saying I got it all figured out. I'm not even saying that's the best way to handle it. It's just my personal experience. I feel I've been a better person to come. I'm a better resource for people to reach out to with a problem because I'm less emotional. I really, really try and put my ego aside when I'm asked to contribute to solving a problem. And that took a lot of change and development and awareness for me. And I can tell you that the way that we sell today is different than it was 15 years ago. The way that we parent today is different than it was 15 years ago. The way that we buy things is different today than it was 15 years ago. The way that we manage and lead and communicate with people is different today than it was 15 years ago. And if we're not the people that make that change or innovate that change or are aware of the need to change, we're going to be left with just what's happened as a result of people making change out in front of us. And they're going to steal our employees. They're going to take business from us. They're going to take customers from us. They're going to they're going to leave us with the scraps. And I don't want, the Blockbusters of the world and, Uber and all that stuff. Again, that's an exaggeration. But at the end of the day, if we're not constantly thinking about how to improve something and we're not aware of our need to change, both personally and professionally, like there's 1,000 things I need to work on personally to be a better father, a better, husband, a better just person overall. And if I'm not aware of that, then the time for me to change is going to come and go. And I'm just going to be the guy that was too stubborn or wasn't aware or wasn't listening. And then all this change happened around me. And I hope that, and change, another word for change is just maturity. It's, both professionally and personally, we should always want to mature and improve. I think change always has this negative connotation, like, what worked for me 10 years ago doesn't work for me anymore. Some of that is because I've just wore myself down. Like the way that I managed 10 years ago wore me down. And maybe it would still be effective today with salespeople and acquisitions agents and customers and, administrative people, but it just wore me down. I couldn't manage that way anymore. And I knew in order for me to remain a person that could have an impact on customers and have an impact on process and have an impact on business, I needed to figure out a different way to implement change and hold people accountable and motivate people and do 1,000 different things that are required to run a successful business. And it all comes back to change. But change has such a negative connotation, I think, to it. But it's really just, it's another word for improvement. It's another word for maturity. It's another word for awareness. And the reality is that I know today, if I'm not willing to change over the next 5 years, I'm not going to do as well as I could. My kids are going to want something different of me 5 years from now than what they do now. They're older. Times have changed. Social media, has a huge impact on communication and youth and all that stuff. Technology has a huge impact on business. So our ability to be willing to innovate and change with marketing and how we communicate with customers. And I am not a tech savvy person, but I understand the need for it. So you have to be willing to mature, improve, and it really comes back to being, open to change. And if you're not, that's fine. You can do things the same way forever. And there's a good chance if you're good at it and you get buy-in and it's a proven process, they say if it's not broke, don't fix it. I 100% agree. We also just have to be aware that there is going to come a time and place to where we don't fix things, but we improve them, we tune them up, we modify them, we adjust them, we measure them. And we have to be willing to just be open to suggestions, be open to, plans of improvement or a way for us to mature our business. And I think if we're unemotional about criticism, if we're not emotional about, which I'm the worst when it comes to criticism. I had a call there. But I'm very passionate about what I do. So sometimes I'm the worst when it comes to constructive criticism. I'm terrible with it. But what I've done is I've learned to let it sink in. I don't respond to it emotionally, and I put my ego aside and just try and focus on whether or not there's some genuine value in the criticism that I've received. And 9 times out of 10 there is. So that's it. Be open-minded. Try not to be emotional when you're in a time of challenging circumstances. Keep yourself focused on what's important, and what's important when you have a challenge is coming up with a solution. And if you're able to check your emotions, if you're able to check your ego, you're going to be able to see things clearer, and you're going to become a person that people rely on to solve problems. And when you become a reliable source of solutions, you increase your value, you become a cherished resource to everybody around you, whether it's family members, business associates, whoever. Everybody will look to you for solutions, and it's a very rewarding thing when you're able to solve problems and help people navigate through difficult situations. So I hope that information was helpful for you. I just needed to get it out and talk about it. And, I like to do these videos, and hopefully you get a little bit of value out of them. But I also love to put them out there because I can go back and watch them as a reminder sometimes, and it's helpful for me to just talk about it and work my way through it sometimes. So I appreciate you guys listening to me babble 3 times a day. I'm sure you get tired of seeing my face, but it helps me pass the time in my car too. I'm sure you noticed that. Anyway, I do a lot of videos in the car, so it helps me pass the time when I'm driving around all over God's creation. So hope you guys had a great Monday. Help people solve problems. Be open-minded when it comes to change. And I hope that you see some results from it. I have. And I'll see you guys later tonight. I'll be on at 7 p.m. Take care.